We've got into a position in Britain where we're more concerned about control than we are about delivery. And it's very simple. All you have to do is talk to one of these insurance agencies or a bank or a telephone, and you're being kept online for 20, 30 minutes before you're finally spoken to by a person who is both patronising and dismissive and tells you that they're going to terminate the conversation if you are rude. It's their determination what rudeness is. And this is a form of bullying. There being no doubt at all about it. And what we've got today is a situation where the people who are actually doing the most damage are the people who then demand apologies. So in the contemporary landscape of politics, the culture of apology has emerged as both a rhetorical tool and a battlefield. At the heart lies the tension between accountability and deflection, sincerity and opportunism, and the clash between Nigel Farage, for example, and Angela Rayner over the Southport murders provides a potent case study of these dynamics, intertwined with a parallel culture of disdain for public accountability on both sides. Be in no doubt that Angela Rayner is as contemptuous of the truth and of helping people as is Nigel Farage. They are both in the business of control, and it's who controls the narrative. It's who has the last word. Farage, the leader of Reform UK, has demanded an apology. I want an apology, I'm not shallow. Has demanded an apology from the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, for accusing him of spreading fake news after the Southport tragedy. His argument would be that I didn't spread fake news, I asked questions. And he asked questions with pointed answers. He asked the questions which had been incited by Andrew Tate and Tommy Robinson. He asked the questions which he knew were going to, well, he may not have known, but he should have known, were going to incite riots. And they did. So Farage's claim that the attack could be linked to terrorism was initially dismissed by Rayner, who urged restraint to avoid stoking conspiracy theories during a time of heightened community tension. However, revelations about the killer Axel Rudakabana and the prevent referrals and the possession of terrorist material have complicated this narrative. And Farage asserting vindication and accusing Rayner of contributing to a damaged suppression of the truth complicates that narrative. Let's be very clear. To use Liz Truss's language, Axel Rudakabana has not been particularly involved in terrorism. What he's done is something horrific and tragic, and he certainly terrorised a neighbourhood. But was he part of a terrorist group? No. And this is where the problem lies. The legal definition of terrorism doesn't encompass, really, what Axel Rudakabana was doing. Of course, he had terrorist material. Of course, the Ricin and the Al-Qaeda training manual contributed to his sentence and his guilt. But was it a terrorist incident in the way that Farage was trying to promote, or in the way that his questions were directing? No. No. And the role of apologies in politics are rarely straightforward. They serve as a performance of humility, a concession of error, or occasionally a strategic retreat. For Farage, demanding an apology positions him as the truth-teller wronged by the establishment, and it's a role that he's cultivated. It's not a role, I think, in this case, he deserves. He needs to pull back, as does Rayner. For Rayner, issuing an apology would not merely acknowledge a misstep, it risks validating Farage's broader criticism of politics and the media elite. Thus, the stakes of an apology extend beyond individual culpability to the legitimacy of political narratives. Running parallel to this is the broader culture for disdain of public scrutiny, exemplified in how political leaders, including Farage and Rayner, navigate such controversies. Both sides accuse the other of inciting tensions, and neither entirely escapes the charge of using the situation for political gain. Rayner's initial rebuke of Farage may have aimed to prevent further unrest, but her dismissiveness now appears poorly calculated in light of the facts. Conversely, Farage's demand for redress risks overshadowing the gravity of the tragedy and its causes, reducing complex issues to a personal grievance. Farage's assertion that the truth was withheld taps into a broader zeitgeist of public mistrust in institutions, and while his critics accuse him of exploiting the tragedy, their failure to transparently address public concerns only fuels the scepticism. The Prevent programme's inadequacies, the riots following the attack, the media's role in framing these events, all demand scrutiny. But they are often eclipsed by the theatrics of political disputes. Rayner's refusal to apologise reflects a wider reluctance in politics to admit error, a reluctance mirrored in Kemi Badenoch's dismissal of calls for an apology over her comments on Reform UK's membership figures. Yet, as Farage's case illustrates, stonewalling often exacerbates rather than resolves controversies. A sincere apology, far from being weakness, could demonstrate leadership, build trust, refocus attention on the victims and the issues at hand. The culture of apology, when weaponised, risks becoming hollow and performative. Farage's demand, Rayner's resistance are less about genuine contrition and more about political posturing. And meanwhile, the disdain for accountability, whether in the suppression of uncomfortable truths or the refusal to engage meaningfully with criticism, erodes public confidence and sets an image and an icon of behaviour for all businesses and all institutions. It's about control. It's about bullying. It's about the suppression of help. If a lesson is to be learned here, it's that apologies, real, timely, proportionate, can be a strength, but only when paired with transparency and a commitment to meaningful action. Otherwise, they're just another casualty in the theatre of modern politics, in the language of modern life. Because in the end, does your heart not take a nosedive, when you realise you've got to call HMRC or Companies House or the bank or your telephone provider or any business, even arranging to see your doctor, your GP? Your heart sinks at the thought of having to engage with that sort of contemptuous authority. We know instinctively that it's wrong. We know instinctively. This morning I was on a call to a company called Aviva, a scurrilous organisation that had paid me some money and hadn't paid me the full amount that was promised. Now, I thought, this is very odd. What they'd actually paid me was a £50 penalty as a result of a complaint. But they hadn't completed the paperwork, clearly. So it certainly wasn't clear what they'd done. But it took half an hour to get that information. And I was treated to a level of patronising disdain, which, frankly, I don't want anything to do with that company ever again. And why would I? Why would I? To be treated with such contempt again and again and again. It's not particularly Aviva which is the problem. The problem is the standard being set by the people in charge. The problem is the standard being set by the Angela Rayners, by the Nigel Farages, by the Keir Starmers, by the Kemi Badenochs. This is the problem. These are the people who set the standard. Control is more important than delivery.